Hello, everyone. My name is Uliana Bach. Here I represent Balkans-Ukrainian Cooperation Network, and I'm based in Sarajevo, and I'm president of Association Project from Sarajevo. We really have great speakers today who has huge experience in these areas. And first of all, I would like to invite Ambassador Valery Shishilashvili. He is board member in Georgian Strategic Analysis Center and former ambassador of Georgia to Ukraine and Russia, as well as former first deputy foreign minister and former minister of finance in Georgia. Mr. Shishilashvili, thank you for joining us today. And I would really appreciate if you can tell us about how Eastern Partnership and if Eastern Partnership should be rethink and if we need a new partnership platform for EU enlargement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Juliana. Am I heard well? It's fine? Can I? Okay. So it's a great pleasure and honor to be with you, with such a distinguished audience. Thank you very much for invitation. I think that this initiative is very timely because we are going through global geopolitical changes, and those platforms of cooperation which were useful maybe in the past, maybe not so good in the present and in future particularly. And Eastern Partnership is one of those platforms which were initiated by the European Union, as well as others, I think with the main aim to promote European values, standards of cooperation, criteria and traditions of European cooperation beyond existing EU borders. But we have, when speaking about Eastern Partnership, and I'll try to focus on that, I think we have to have in mind this whole geopolitical picture, because it opened. It's of course a big tragedy. It's barbaric attack and the invasion of Russian Federation into Ukraine. But at the same time, it opened qualitatively new opportunities in the region. And status of candidate countries of Ukraine and Moldova, which I wholeheartedly congratulate our partners with, as well as European perspective for Georgia, is an outcome of these tragic developments actually in Europe. And taking advantage of this opportunity, I would like also, of course, to congratulate our colleagues from Bosnia and Herzegovina for this great step and for this status of candidate country. Decision was made yesterday, and it's a great success. Wholehearted congratulations. Now, coming back to this geopolitical context and its influence on the reformatting of the existing patterns of cooperation, and I will focus on Eastern Partnership, of course. I think that defeat of Russia is inevitable in this war, and another vivid manifestation of this readiness was demonstrated by a G7 group in the last summit, and in declaration this G7 group, which actually again transformed in G8, although instead of Russia now President Zelensky is participating in, and it was actually very interesting. The first time in the history of G7, on October 13 earlier this year, after barbaric attacks to energy and civilian infrastructure of Russian military forces, G7 scheduled meeting following the request of president of the country who is not G7 member state, and this was again President Zelensky. But what is important, I think, if you take like last statement of G7, 11 out of 18 paragraphs of the statement are devoted to Ukraine. And what is the most important, G7 again supported the peace plan presented by President Zelensky, which is well known with its 4 components. Okay, withdrawal of Russian forces to the line of 90 and 91. Prosecution of war criminals, reparations to Ukraine, including reparations from Russia, and as we know, and Ursula von der Leyen, President of European Commission, already stated that European Union will start to operate and invest seized assets of Russian Central Bank, $300 billion US plus 19 billion US seized, freezed from Russian oligarchs, and all proceedings will go to Ukraine. And after this war will be over, then this will be a part of reparation Russia will pay to Ukraine. And last but not least, 4th component is future security guarantees for Ukraine. So I think that it's inevitable that consolidation of support for Ukraine is growing every day, and Russia is being sanctioned. It's already declared by European Parliament as a terrorism supporting state, and more national parliaments are adopting similar decisions. So this brings me to a conclusion that
Mr. Shalashvili, you muted yourself, please.
Yes, something happened. Yes, this defeat is inevitable, and then the whole network of international affairs will be naturally restructured, because I think that after this defeat, Russia will have to focus on its internal problems, and will try to do everything in order to preserve its statehoodness into the international recognized borders of Russian Federation, which are at the moment. So, and this will have also some outcomes. Like I think that this international formats organized and dominated by Russian Federation will inevitably collapse. And first of all, those are Collective Security Treaty Organization and Eurasian Union with its customs union, and which will put two countries of Eastern Partnership, Belarus and Armenia, in a position when they would start to look for another formats to find themselves in. But for the time being, we have Eastern Partnership. This Eastern Partnership, formally, there are 6 countries in there, trio members, Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia, who have signed the association agreements with the European Union, and two countries have candidate status. Georgia has European perspective, and now we are working in order to fulfill this 12-point plan in order to get this candidate status. Although I have to share with you my thoughts that I'm not currently very optimistic about this, because in Georgia at the moment polarization of the society is we couldn't see any signs of depolarization, unfortunately. And first of all, I think that this responsibility goes to the ruling party and government. But taking advantage of this opportunity, I would like to inform this audience about our project, which GSAC is developing together with our partners and other think tank organization, Geocase, who is positioned more as a pro-government think tank, and we are considered more like pro-opposition. So the motto of Geocase is that they are cooperating with this government, and they will cooperate with any government which will come in the future. And our logo is that we are criticizing this government, and we will criticize any government which will come after this government. So, but we are trying to put our heads together. We elaborated national unity platform in order to demonstrate that even with different, maybe we cannot agree about everything, but we can elaborate common vision and approaches vis-a-vis facing Georgia problems and challenges Georgia is facing at the moment. So, but coming back to this Eastern Partnership, I think that we have 6 countries. They are very different. Trio I mentioned. Belarus actually lost its sovereignty, is completely under the political, military, whatever influence of the Russian Federation. Armenia is a member of Eurasian Union and CSTO, and is actually also under big Russian influence. Azerbaijan is a different story. It's active member of non-alignment movement, but it has very strong connections with the European Union as far as energy and transport cooperation is concerned. And recent visit of European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen to Baku in July 18th and signing memorandum of understanding on strategic partnership in energy was another demonstration of this fact. So I think that in future, maybe if you go in future, I see relationship between Azerbaijan and the European Union according to the model Norway-European Union, something like that, which I think will contribute also to the stability and integration in this part of Europe, in Southeastern Europe. South Caucasus is integral part of. About Armenia, I said after CSTO will collapse, Armenia will have to find its new place in the international network, and from this point of view, I think that this initiative, Western Balkans 6 plus Trio platform, is very timely and very needed one, because I think finally it will speak about the new configuration of security in Europe, which will be an integral part of new world security order. I see this as an outcome of a strategic defeat, as President Biden said, of Russian Federation in Ukraine. And for me, this strategic defeat means 2 things. First, depriving Russian Federation of capacity to blackmail the whole world with nuclear weapons. And number 2, depriving Russian Federation of capacity to annex or occupy territories of the neighboring states. And in order to establish these mechanisms of deterring Russia, and after all, actually, eventually returning after democratization and normalization of situation in Russia, after returning the Russian Federation as a normal player, according to accepted principles and norms of international law in the international network. In order to ensure all this, I think that the only way is the expansion of European Union and expansion of NATO. And finally, I think that if we will imagine in future the Western Balkan 6 countries plus Trio countries, I know that not all of them actually are seeking membership of NATO at the moment, but we are all united vis-a-vis our approximation to the European Union and final and eventual goal of membership there. But I think that provided these countries are members of the European Union and members of NATO, this will create a very sustainable international order, which will ensure stability and sustainability of the world and the European order for future decades to come. To conclude, I would like to congratulate authors of this paper, which Juliana, you so kindly presented to us. I think that it's a very good fundamental paper, and it's a very good starting point to start with. And with our unity and our integrated efforts, I think that we have good chances to convince European Union and European Commission that this platform may be useful from political point of view and for organizational point of view as well, having in mind the rational utilization of all these huge resources, billions of euros, which European Union is allocating in the pre-accession process. I'll stop here and thank you very much for this opportunity. I'll be more than glad to answer any questions which might be in the audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Shalashvili. It's really great contribution of your expertise in all these Eastern Partnership issues and all problems which we have there, but also your idea, like your support to this idea of cooperation between Western Balkans and the trio. And I really hope that we will succeed to get support from European Union also. So if there is any questions, I would like this time to ask. If not, you can do it later during discussion. I hope that everybody will be still here and then together we'll discuss. So now we really have another great speaker is Professor Radu Karp. He's head of the Department of Public Policies in the International Relations and Security Studies at the University of Bucharest, Romania. And actually why it's really important for us to hear his opinion, because Romania actually, let's say, some bridge country, geographical bridge, which actually bring together, like connect together Western Balkans region and the trio. So it's really interesting to hear his opinion, what he thinks about changing EU enlargement strategy for strengthening European Union and how actually EU should ensure that Europe is united. Professor Karp, floor is yours.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes, we can see and hear you.
Yes. Well, first of all, I'm for the first time in this kind of meeting. So if I rightly understood, you want to deliver this kind of position to all relevant stakeholders, to the European Commission and so on. So, and you want also to, I don't understand very well if you want to do it as an open letter or to send it first and then to say, well, this is about the strategy around the communication strategy, that it's apart, let's say. But for the content, my assessment is that it's a very good moment for the Balkan countries in order to be closer to the European Union because of many factors. Because of the war in Ukraine. So now the European Union started to realize that it could play a role as a geopolitical actor. It didn't finish this process, I would say. We are right now in the middle road, I would say. It started to realize, but there are no concrete initiatives in order to behave like a geopolitical actor. So I would say that what happened yesterday with Bosnia, it's a very good start, but it's not enough. I mean, the whole problem should be dealt with all these countries. So one of the main points of this kind of position would be like, even if these countries are on a different stage, they have the same right to aspire to be members at some point. Why it's so important? Because I think there are some advantages to be connected as a region, but nevertheless, there are some differences that have not to undermine the whole process. And this is very important from my perspective. Another very important thing, it's and we can add, but it's more a political. When I saw the content of the document, is more, let's say, cultural dimension and so on. It's not very political in the sense that I've just read 2 days before a very interesting comment in Politico and very interesting proposals which were made. Well, of course, I know that these are not for the first time they are on the table, but nevertheless, it is a very good moment to put them again into light, namely to give special observer status to Parliament, future European Parliament members in 2024 from these countries, from Western Balkan countries, and also to associate the ministers of these countries to various council formations, and why not to the European Council. And this is a very good proposal. But once again, it depends on what do you intend to do, because it could be interpreted like, well, this is not coming from the civil society, but it's more political. In my view, I run also an NGO. I know that sometimes politicians could go mad if someone will give them an advice, very clear advice, but sometimes they don't recognize, but they need this kind of feedback from civil society. I mean, this kind of proposal that was around, let's say, to associate members to the Parliament and the Council, I think it is a very good idea, and if civil society will promote this idea, it's a very good thing. And I think what also my third point that I want to emphasize is that you need to show to the world, to the whole of Europe, what you are right now in this moment, in the sense that European path, European integration is not only, how to say, a scenario or a project supported by some political parties, but it's wide in the society. I mean, there is more than, I don't know, 50% percentage of citizens willing to join. And it's very important to have the back of the public opinion for a long time. And in order to have this public opinion in favor of the European Union, you need some concrete measures like those who are, my opinion, also this kind of very political decisions. Because if you say the majority of citizens are supporting even political decisions, you have an advantage in speaking with not only with the Commission, but also with the European political parties, because I know very well the dynamics of the European Union, and some things that cannot be solved at the level of the Commission can be solved at the level of the political parties represented in the parliament, and you need to give them something, a food for thought, a special food for thought, special from the one of the commission. So I can give you hundreds of cases when everything was solved on this level, and then a decision was taken at the level of the commission. Of course, I can give you, I don't know, 1% cases which were not solved in this way, and the commission say, well, we are a technical body and we don't care about what you are saying as a group. But just taking into account these aspects that could give more importance to the way you want to present the document, and of course the final form of it. Thank you.
Professor Karp, thank you very much for your really very specific ideas how to improve and what to move. For sure, we really can include your inputs regarding like to enhance this political focus of the paper. And this is really good idea. And of course, these steps for further advocacy, we also were thinking that if we really want to succeed, we cannot only work only with European Commission, but also with the political elite, with political parties and with parliament. And for sure, to make them interested in this, we should include such ideas as you proposed. So thank you very much. And
one thing to add, you can imagine that the European Commission received, I don't know, hundreds of letters and open letters every day. But European political parties at their headquarters receive 10 times less. And members of the sectoral council that are ministers from country, all member states, do not receive a very huge amount of paper. So this is why I said it's very important how to spread them, which is the final destination.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. This is very clever idea. So thanks. And regarding your proposal to include statistics regarding support European Union, I think this is great contribution to our next presentation. I invite Adi Chermagic. He's a senior analyst for the Western Balkans at European Stability Initiative, and I must say one of the really best experts in EU integration for Western Balkans. And now we notice that actually, particularly in Ukraine, but also I believe in Moldova, a lot of civil society organizations which working for EU integration are interested to learn from Western Balkans experience, because as you know, some countries in Western Balkans now 15 years already waiting for their membership and are staying in candidate status. So Ukrainians are really afraid how to avoid some mistakes which maybe Western Balkans had. So this is something what I really looking forward also to hear from Adi. So Adi, floor is yours.
Thank you.
Tell us
Thank
what
you very
actually,
much.
yeah, tell us what the trio can learn from Western Balkans.
Yes. No, first of all, thank you very much for having me, and thank you very much for the paper or the document that you've prepared. It really goes into some important details and sketches some important steps forward. I was thinking to have it a little bit different, my presentation, but hearing from previous speakers, I will change it a little bit and start from the point of civil society. Like, yes, interest of also entire civil or most of the civil society in all our 9 countries is for our countries to join the European Union. But the question is, how do we join the EU? Are we reformed, transformed? Are our countries liberal? Are our institutions fit, etc.? And where is the limit of what is possible through the process, and where at some point we really need to say, we can't become perfect societies, we can't become, you know, these models of how liberal democracies in Europe should look like. We need to also be allowed to join, you know, even if we continue to have some flaws. And I think civil society in the Western Balkans, but I can see it happening elsewhere as well, will struggle between these, these lines of where you argue for EU membership, where you criticize EU because you want your country to improve much better, and where is the point where you say, and now this needs to stop. And in that sense, I think it makes sense to argue for example, ESI argues very strongly for inclusion of all countries into the single market, or to argue for inclusion in the European Parliament as sketched out, or in the Council, or in the working documents. But the question really is who and at what point gets to be part of all of this. I'll give you one recent example. That is, EU or the Council has decided to debrief Western Balkan countries on the results of the Foreign Affairs Council meetings. So when the foreign ministers meet, they discuss different issues from Ukraine to, to Sahel. And then afterwards, diplomats from the country, from 6 Western Balkan countries are invited to be debriefed of what happened at the Foreign Affairs Council. And then you think, do really all 6 deserve to be debriefed? Do all 6 really deserve to be engaged or involved into the work, if we know that Serbia is failing to align on foreign policy when it comes to Ukraine and Russia, when we know that Bosnia and Herzegovina does align but doesn't implement any of the sanctions practically, or doesn't make any practical steps on it? And is there, are they really all the same on these issues? And and in the end, what does this debriefing mean if the Council will do it with in the hindsight that Serbia or Bosnia and Herzegovina might leak all the information to Russians or to whoever not? And does it then lose the the point, because then what will be shared is the same what is shared in media, and then what is the point of the exercise that is? So on this small example, I want to say, yes, we need to fight for our countries to get good offers, to get as integrated as possible, as politically possible in the EU, but we need to make sure that that happens on the basis of countries really delivering something, not becoming model countries and model member states, but really delivering something concrete and something that we as civil society consider as useful. So in that sense, our proposal to have this Western Balkans and trio joining single market that you've happily taken over, or even before I joined you, you had it as your proposal, is something that cannot happen without countries aligning when it comes to the EU acquis, EU standards, without having rule of law institutions that are going to make sure that the single market rules are observed, without having monitoring institutions, from statistics to phytosanitary rules, which are, fully aligned with the EU. And that kind of goal, that kind of offer then makes sense, because first of all, politically in the EU 27, it might be possible because it's not enlarging institutions in Brussels and having it more complicated, but at the same time it offers concrete, it offers a path to do something which is beneficial for the countries, which is something that civil society can support, and at the same time it comes with an award for citizens and for the economies that they're treated like as if they were EU citizens. So I think in that sense we really need to be, and I'm aware that there might be different opinions and that the red lines might be here or there, and that is perfectly normal, but I think we need to be aware of that. And I think there is one lesson of the Western Balkans. For me, the worst nightmare would be to have trio and Western Balkans in some kind of a group where everyone will be then treated the same, in a sense of you will have to create common regional markets, or these things that we see in the Western Balkans, because in fact not all 6 are the same. We have 3 NATO members in the Western Balkans, North Macedonia, Albania, and Montenegro. We have them fully aligned on the foreign policy. We have, Montenegro opened all chapters, but 10 years after accession talks have started, still doesn't have a clear date when it might join the EU, or when the process might go towards its end. So we are not the same, but there are points where we can cooperate. And I think these kind of platforms and these kind of exchanges do make sense. So on your proposals and on your things, you've asked me to discuss this inclusion of the trio in these regional organizations, and I've stressed it out because I've heard it in Brussels, in different capitals, discussions on potentially doing it. I think we need to be aware, what these institutions are. Do we want everyone to be in there, or it's going to be, as one of my predecessors mentioned, or it's going to be actually, a problem, not just for the Western Balkans, but also for the trio to be involved in some of these organizations. And, if we think about the Regional Youth Cooperation Office and exchanges of young people, to what extent then this idea that these post-war countries in the Western Balkans are engaged in this, at what point, if you include 3 other countries which have a different historical context, at what point does that then lose the main point that it had at the beginning? So I think we need to be careful on that. Another thing where we need to be careful is that we are played against each other, and that was also my big fear in February, March, because as with my think tank, I've been in contact with a lot of NGO sector in Ukraine. And I have to say, for Ukrainians, for all the right reasons, we don't want to be treated like in the same group with Serbia. We don't want to be in the same group with Bosnia and Herzegovina, because these countries have their own issues, have their own problems. We are different. On the other hand, among the Western Balkans, the issue was, we've been in this process for 20 years. We want a closure for us. We don't want, new countries. And I think that can be very easily exploited by, both our friends and our foes. And that's why these kind of platforms are really key, because we get to meet each other and we get to talk to each other and we get to, dismantle some of these fears. Also, I think on the content wise, it's important that we cooperate, because sometimes we go with some ideas to the Commission about the Western Balkans and they say, oh, we tried it with the Ukraine, Moldova, it didn't work, and the vice versa. Sometimes from Ukraine, they go and say, we want this, we think it would be good, it would be beneficial, but then they say, oh, we tried it with Western Balkans, it doesn't work. And a couple of times I've really noticed, not since February, but before February, is that actually it wasn't true. It's just that the Commission either didn't have resources or didn't have interest to, engage with the countries. So to kind of conclude and then open to a discussion, because I think that might be more interesting, I think your paper is good because it has a big story behind it. We want concrete offer for these countries. We want for them the same. I would stress, yes, but only if they reform, if they do things. There is no must to treat these 9 countries as part of a group. There is no must saying, Ukraine needs to wait until Bosnia and Herzegovina gets its things sorted out. No, the offer needs to be for all 9, but then those that do things can and should enjoy in the benefits that they can win, or that they can fight for. So there is a big story to it. There is a platform that you want to create. I think this one on the civil society is, for me, the most important. I think at the political level, it's also the question whether ministers would want to meet, at what point, because of this issue that Serbia and Bosnia and Herzegovina are have policies that they have, and which I'm not happy about, but they are as they are. So there might be problems and things like that. And I think also what would be good is to argue for, as soon as possible, for the European Commission to publish its analytical report on the trio. This is these 33 chapters where they really stand and the grades that the European Commission gives on that, because I think that would disperse a lot of prejudice in the Balkans about Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia, and vice versa, because then we would be able to compare all the 9 countries, including also Turkey, because there is that kind of report for Turkey, on these 33 chapters on the rule of law, where they stand. And I think we would be surprised that some of the trio countries are doing significantly or much better than some of the Western Balkans. And then on the basis of this comparable comparable results, we could then argue, for what needs to happen next. In the Western Balkans, for example, North Macedonia and Montenegro are actually front runners when it comes to the alignment with the EU, but some other countries are front runners because of the political decision by the EU at the time to push the accession process with them, despite not being aligned as much as they should be. Or, for example, Kosovo is actually better prepared for EU membership at the moment than Bosnia and Herzegovina on 33 chapters, but Kosovo, just applied for EU membership for its own specific reasons. So it helps, build the arguments for a lot of things that you've put in this paper, and that can be very useful and helpful. So that would be for me, but happy to discuss in the question and answer.
Adi, thank you very much. It's very good points. Really, maybe we should emphasize, in particular, I like that you pointed out this grouping, which actually happened in Western Balkans, and we can actually learn from Western Balkans when Albania was waiting on together with North Macedonia because of this grouping. So maybe we really should point out in our position papers that when we are talking about platform, we are talking about collaboration and partnership, but not putting in the same basket in terms of EU integration, and actually that each country, maybe it's something what we really also should point out in our position papers, it should take individually, and the progress should be evaluated on individual basis, but not to put to group someone. So this is really good point. And of course, this one that actually it's while we are now will address this position paper to EU, we should not forget about the role of our government, and no EU integration can happen if the reforms and the results are not delivered. So this is something what we as civil society should work with our governments. And really, if we want to be members of EU, if we want to have single markets, we should really do very clear things towards EU requirements. So it's very easy mathematics what should be done. So thank you very much. And if someone else want to comment on Adi's speech, please, or have some questions. Mr. Gudalo.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Well, first of all, I would like to greet you on behalf of Boris Dirkovic Foundation in Sarajevo. I'm here with my colleague Harisa as well. Unfortunately, our executive director Anela was not able to join. She's on the business trip, so we are here. Firstly, Uliana, thank you. It's a super interesting topic, at least for me, so I'm really happy to be here. And I have two questions. The first question is actually for Adi, Chair Magic. I'm happy to see you once again, Adi. Is it really, what is the possibility for future enlargement before the EU reforms itself? I think now we have this kind of gap between what the EU wants for itself on one hand, and on the other hand, we have this bunch of countries now wanting to join, and we have the list of candidate countries at the moment, which is, 4 at the moment, 5. What is really the possibility that we will see any enlargement anytime soon before the EU finally finds its way to function? And the second question is for Mr. Valery Chelashvili. I'm really sorry for destroying your surname. There is one country that we keep forgetting, and that is Belarus. And what is actually the future of Belarus after the conflict is over, after the invasion is over? Because I think that gap between Poland and Russia can be quite geopolitically dangerous. So where can we put Belarus at the end? And finally, just maybe a proposal or an idea. I think RICO, Regional Youth Cooperation Office, works quite well in the Western Balkans for 6 countries. Is there any possibility for a similar office or an idea for these 3 countries? Because 9 will be too much, I think, for RICO idea to function, but maybe there is a possibility for Georgia, Armenia, or Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine to work together on a similar idea. So maybe for the next paper, an idea. Thank you.
Okay, Adi, can you please?
Yes, I'm trying to find the figures. The thing is, it's a bit like, how do I say? So what both Chancellor Scholz, what the Green Party in Berlin, but also President Macron in the Netherlands, in Denmark, and elsewhere are saying is that, EU with 27 is struggling to function. We need to, we need to make it more fit for future members. And that's their official position. I mean, they're repeating it at every level that you can, imagine, from the state secretary in Berlin in the Foreign Office to, Chancellor Scholz. So it seems that at the moment, political condition for future members to join is internal reform of the EU. However, my first doubt about the EU making itself fit is that it's possible to do it, because at the moment the focus is really on bringing down unanimity, trying to circumvent vetoes that member states have, and the focus is on the foreign policy issue. But if you look at the issues, and most of the decisions in the EU are done by qualified majority voting, so countries do not have vetoes, you will see that there actually decision-making process is not slower, it's not quicker. It hasn't make it more how do I say, functional in many respects. One example, visa liberalization for Kosovo. It has been qualified majority voting, but it hasn't happened because everyone said we're not going to, we don't do things without everyone finding a consensus. So, this idea that if we lift the veto right on foreign policy will somehow lead to, EU becoming, global actor deciding with, is a bit of a, in practical terms, if we look at other policy areas where that has happened, it's a bit too ambitious to say. So what is needed is actually to have a political environment in which politicians in the EU will feel comfortable to say, oh, we did so much, we are ready for new members. It's not about, concrete issues and actually making EU fit. It's about creating this feeling that the EU is more fit and that the EU is more able to make decisions. And for that, I really don't see what actually needs to happen to change this mood. What I can tell you is Montenegro had a new government earlier this year, and both in Berlin, but in Brussels as well, they were very happy about the new government. They were saying, now finally reforms will start, things will start moving. But when we confronted them with the idea that Montenegro could be offered a timeline to become a 28 member state, because, EU already had 28 member states when the UK left, Montenegro is significantly smaller than the UK budget-wise. It's not going to be a problem. It's a tourism-oriented country. It has a border with the EU, it would make, it's a NATO member, ally on the foreign policy, let's just offer to Montenegro a concrete date to take place of the UK at least. It was considered a blasphemy, both in Berlin, but also in Brussels, in a sense like, oh, we can't do that. That would be, departure from our policy. But then when you tell them, in fact, that's how every enlargement happened. It always happened with giving a year, giving a time frame for a country. Then you see that actually it has, it has passed too many years, and too many people have left who know how enlargement worked before to know how things worked. So what is then the alternative? That's also what our proposal has been, is to hope that the situation in Ukraine will progress in a way that all of us want. Friendship that Ukraine has been able, for all the right reasons, to create both in Central and Eastern Europe, but also in Western Europe, that will, work as a catalyst for EU 27 to offer a concrete timeline, not just for Ukraine, but for all countries, where it would say, by 2030, all of you who reform will be able to join the EU if we reform the EU. If the situation in the EU is like, oh, we've now become more functional, you can join. But in case that doesn't happen, that, at least these countries will be able to be part of the EU single market and enjoy the four freedoms. And for that, we see political possibility. Ukraine citizens have been offered a possibility to come to the EU to work, to live, to reside as if they were EU citizens. So one of the 4 freedoms is already has been granted to 42 million Ukrainians. So expanding it to 17, 18 million Western Balkans people will also not create a huge disturbance in the EU. So we see a bit of the position. So I'm very skeptical that this year we will get any concrete date for any of the countries, but I really do hope that Sweden, with the big focus on Ukraine, it's a huge friend of Ukraine, and it's the focus of Swedish presidency, that they will be able to convince EU member states to offer something, some kind of a more concrete thing.
Adi, thank you very much. Mr. Chilashvili, would you like now to answer a question regarding Belarus?
Yes, of course. This question about the organizational capacity for trio countries is very easy to answer, because already they have this organizational capacity. There is a full-fledged regional cooperation organization, Organization for Democracy and Economic Development, GUAM, which was established as an initiative in 1997 and transformed into full-fledged regional organization in 2006. Its headquarters is in Kyiv on Maidan Nezalezhnosti, and it's well established organizationally. It has capacity, technological, technical, organizational, free trade area was established, which with this internal Guam trade, more than $4 billion before COVID started, and then we have this barbaric war. It has a virtual center combating organized crime, diversified number of working groups. So this four-lateral cooperation is rather developed together with TRIO. Azerbaijan also is a member of this organization. So this organizational capacity is already there. I think that it can be used also for these purposes of TRIO, because although Azerbaijan didn't declare its intentions to become eventually a member of the European Union or NATO, it has rather strong economic cooperation perspectives with the European Union. I mentioned it in energy and transport sector. As far as NATO is concerned, I may remind this distinguished audience about the military political cooperation, a strong one Azerbaijan has with Turkey, one of NATO members. And I mean here important Shusha declaration, which was signed approximately one year ago between Azerbaijan and Turkey. Speaking about Belarus, unfortunately at the moment I think that we can hardly speak about the full-fledged sovereignty, state sovereignty of Belarus. It's completely overshadowed by Russia and goes in line with Russia's policy. But after inevitable defeat of Russia in this barbaric war, I think that Belarus will regain its political sovereignty, because Russia will be very much preoccupied with this turbulence and turbulent developments internally in Russia itself. And I think main headache of Russia will be to keep its territorial integrity in internationally recognized borders. And for that, in this light, Belarus will have to find its proper place in the network of international relations. First of all, I think Belarus should join the Council of Europe, because Belarus is the last European state which is not a member of Council of Europe. Russia has left it, but it's a different story. Together with this, I think that if we keep in mind the regional cooperation platforms, GUAM, this Organization for Democracy and Economic Development, may be a good shelter for Belarus Then in this context, I think Belarus could be prospective member of this platform of cooperation we are speaking about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ambassador Chelishvili. And now we are moving actually like continuation to this area of security and this hot topic. We now really have on high agenda in all global discussion, but particularly in European discussions. So that's why we really were focused in our position paper on this area, and we step out with very specific idea how we see collaboration between Western Balkans, Ukraine, and EU. So I really would like to have now Mikhailo Samus, which is the director of a new Geopolitics Research Network and his security expert from Ukraine, to present this area which we proposed in our position paper, and it's rated on enhancing security within EU integration in the framework of the Kyiv Security Compact. So Mikhailo, please tell us more about the idea.
Thank you very much, Uliana. Thank you very much, everybody, to participate in this great event and discussion. I already have a absolutely great feelings about our discussion, because we already discussed a lot of new ideas, a lot of new feelings, and new possible approaches to how to realize our idea, because our idea generally was kind of how to create a new format to be closer between Trio and Western Balkans. Even a lot of people immediately started to say that you are crazy, it's impossible, it's all of these countries has own problems, and if you are connected, all of these 9 countries, it will be even worse than and better for your approach. But what if I react a little bit on the current discussions on the issue, how to make the useful our proposing format of Western Balkans and Trio? I think that what is one of the conclusion of these 10 months of Russian full-scale aggression against Ukraine, that European Union and NATO, they didn't show the full capacity to be leaders in our regions, and unfortunately, of course, and this is very paradoxically, but European Union was more leader than NATO in even in security issues, because NATO even now trying to continue keep a neutrality in this conflict. Even it sounds like crazy, but if you look at the reality, even the statements of General Secretary of the NATO every time talking that we'd like to be outside of the conflict, we don't want to participate, we don't want escalation, we don't want to the doors are open, but we want to give Ukraine and Georgia a member action plan. I cannot understand it. Definitely. I working with NATO for 20 years already, but since 2008 in April, I think it was a full disaster of NATO, and still we have problems. European Union deciding to give Ukraine, Moldova candidate status and give European perspective for Georgia, I think made a huge geopolitical progress by this, because it was a very brave step in face of Russians. Even if you look at the last 10 years, it was a romantic period, and a lot of European bureaucrats started to understand Russia. They told that, of course, it's a comfortable situation, comfortable format when we using cheap Russian gas, and keep Russia in rights to be a sovereign let's say, democracy, how the sovereign autocracy it doesn't matter, but we use Russian energy. And in this case, they were very pessimistic on Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia. They never even talking about the European prospects. Now we have a different situation. Now we start to have this very fast progress. And why our idea is on creating a new platform. First of all, I'd like to thanks to Uliana for this proposition of multilateral platform, because it could be a multi-layer discussions on this. Even now in our discussion, we have a lot of ideas, and we try to explain each other what Western Balkans and Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia could propose, could want from this progress. And of course, in this multilateral platform should participate European Union representatives, because I had several discussions in Brussels actually, and internally in European Union, they think that European Union should change the approach for enlargement, because before it was purely, or maybe not purely, but kind of bureaucratic approach for enlargement. And a lot of people now, a lot of voices now inside of system of European Union trying to say that we should change it to geopolitical approach to enlargement rather than bureaucrat. Of course, we could say, talking for years about requirements, standards, chapters, points, whatever. But if you look in reality, if you just started to, if we just continue bureaucratic approach to enlargement, we anyway given a geopolitical vacuum for Russians or Chinese, whatever, to keep influence on Western Balkans and trio, for example. I'm not talking about Belarus. Belarus is a good example how to be a European country, but be absolutely non-sovereign and non-independent state under total control of Russians. And actually on Monday, Putin will arrive to Minsk. And I think it will be a total proclamation that Belarus is a part of Russia. Of course, it will be symbolically sovereign state, but in reality, it will be part of Putin regime and will continue air and missile and maybe land attack against Ukraine very soon. So talking about the security a little bit, and actually about the Kyiv Security Compact. I just remind you that this document was published by President of Ukraine. And to be honest, from my point of view, it's not finished yet. I mean, the Kyiv Security Compact idea is a draft, but of course not complete document, and it's not a complete concept. The President of Ukraine proposed the principles of Kyiv Security Compact for countries that are not members of NATO or EU. So it's especially for us. And he proposed several points, like high readiness forces that can effectively respond to aggression, a massive joint training program with international trainers and advisors from the EU and NATO, advanced defensive weapon systems, including air and missile defense, cyber capabilities, advanced radar capabilities, access to EU funding to rebuild the national defense industry in line with EU, NATO standards, and develop new defensive capability with EU member states, and territorial defense forces based on the concept of national resilience. Again, to be honest, of course, all of these points are very interesting, but they are not be automatically apply for all of our countries, especially for Western Balkans, which is in every Western Balkan country, we could find a very unique situation in case of security. And what I think that we need to create some a new format, maybe based on Kyiv Security Compact. But I think that the best way to be in security is NATO and European Union, especially for our region. I mean, Western Balkans and Ukraine, Moldova and Georgia. So we could look at the Kyiv Security Compact like a temporary or some transition process, transition format, or in the process of advancing to NATO and European Union, but to be stronger in this period when we out of this organization. Of course, we had a lot of discussions about the next possible format. Of course, we could add to President Zelensky propositions, and from my point of view, it will be very interesting intelligence cooperations, command and control and communications developments, and of course, next generation weapon system development, and of course, cybersecurity, what we could do together in all of 9 countries, look at the already lessons from Russian-Ukrainian war and try to avoid the same mistakes, trying to build capabilities which will build the system enough to avoid next conflicts like Russian aggression against Ukraine. To be more practical on how to continue with security and defense cooperation in case of our Western Balkan and trio format, we proposing that the new security framework can begin on the basis of the military assistance mission in support of Ukraine, which now is on creation process. And of course, it could be that Moldova and Georgia will join this mission very easy. And of course, in case of expanding a similar format of cooperation to Western Balkans, it will be possible to extend the mission with appropriate consideration of the regional specifics. What I mean that, of course, the best practices now, the best lessons, methods, how to develop the security and defense sectors, we see in Ukraine, because every day we have new challenges, new threats, and Ukrainian people, Ukrainian armed forces working on it, how to deal with it. So if everybody in the United States, in European Union, in other countries, trying to get the best experience from the modern warfare, of course, you should go to Ukraine. And this military assistance mission support to Ukraine could be a format which all of our countries, I mean, Georgia, Moldova, Ukraine, and of course, Western Balkan countries could study a lot. So I think it could be a good format for everybody of us to study lessons and get best practices, and of course, to create a new format of communication between security and defense stakeholders in any echelon. I mean, the government, non-governmental organization, think tanks, civil societies, whatever. And I think it could be a good example of cooperation. And of course, if you're talking about the hybrid warfare, I think EU should support development and joint cooperation format between Western Balkans, Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia for countering hybrid interference. And Uliana proposed this format, including, of course, disinformation, misinformation, propaganda, and other threats. And I think that multilateral partnership platform for cooperation could be a good model for these. Of course, we will talk about the business, economical, culture, youth cooperation, but in security sphere, I think that multilateral partnership platform could be a good format to have discussions, to have exchange of information, of opinions, what we do now actually. But I think we should approach to construction of this multilateral partnership platform to build a good model of all of this exchanging of opinions and ideas for all of our countries to have a new understanding of the environment, and of course, as I started with, to give signals, to give a new let's say understanding of the geopolitical situation to European Union countries, to Brussels, because now we have an internal discussion, but I think that it's extremely important to bring this discussion to Brussels, because of course it's easier to say, okay, guys, we have structures for Western Balkans, we have some approach and model for Eastern Partnership, maybe for trio, but let's do not make it even more complicated, because Western Balkans have own problems. You have even more problems now. Why you should join these problems? But our approach, I think, should be that we are not looking for joining problems, but we are looking for joining our new approach to geopolitical reality, and our geopolitical reality inside of European Union, and I hope in NATO. And I think together we could go even in more successful. And so we shouldn't actually be afraid of joining our regions to be closer to European Union. Thank you very much, and I'm ready to answer your questions.
Mikhailo, thank you very much. Of course, security is quite broad topic, and we included it in our position paper, but of course we also aware that if we want to propose new model, it should be developed specific position paper on this with involvement of more security experts, but we couldn't exclude this topic from our position paper, and Mikhailo was really we are happy that we have him as the author of this position paper, one of the authors who can describe this area quite good. And if you have now any questions or proposal, please, you can do it. If not, we can discuss it further on. And now actually we are moving to another area which is also very relevant to security, because while in Ukraine we have war, on the war field, in all our countries we have another hybrid war, and disinformation is one of the main tools which Russia use for their own agenda in all countries, not only in Western Balkans and the trio, but in all European countries. But let's talk in the context of our cooperation and our position paper. And I would like to invite here Mariana Prisezhnuk. She's Stop Fake expert and journalist. Stop Fake is a very famous organization which is focused on disinformation fight. And we are happy to have Mariana as a member of our team. And Mariana, please, can you open this area of how we can jointly work together in countering Russian false narratives and disinformation, which we really have in our media and social media and other informational area? So, Mariana.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I'm very happy to join another one discussion. Thank you for all insights. I have prepared a short presentation about kind of updates what's going on the informational battlefield. So let me share the screen with you just a few seconds. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Once again, let me introduce myself. My name is Mariana Prisizhnuk. Mostly I collaborate with Stop Fake. This is organization from Ukraine based on Kyiv Mogila Academy. We have been analyzing Russian propaganda for 8 years. I joined this team 2 years ago. And this is one of the experienced anti-propaganda organization in the region, I would say, because we're providing a lot of consulting services also for Moldova and colleagues from Romania and different countries as well, from Balkans countries too. And my presentation today, I would probably talk more on a tactical perspective rather than strategical. Sorry for that, because it seems very important what's going on the informational field in the context of attacks on energy infrastructure of Ukraine, because it is extremely Russian rockets are accompanied with obviously informational rockets, and I will provide you how it works, what's going on in the state wire communication of Russian Federation. And also we have actually unexpected spots that we have discovered regarding Romania. So I hope it will be interesting and could let us to make together some conclusion on strategical level. So let me start. I'm not very good on this Zoom technology, so I apologize. Okay. What's going on? Probably you might have read what the morning had Ukraine today, and this bombardment started, massive bombardment of energy facilities in Ukraine started in October as well. Informational support of these attacks also started on in October, and it's going on in the several countries at the same time, attacking Ukraine, attacking decision-making process in Ukraine, but from the different perspectives, and it operates on the different levels as well. Mostly it aims to exacerbate and inspire energy crisis, how it's discussed, to radicalize this position as well, and Kremlin launched disinformation campaign with various targets, mostly in Republic of Moldova, Ukraine, and as we have discovered, it's also a matter of Romania, because if we are talking about Ukraine and Moldova, it's direct narratives that disseminated in this country, attacking, supporting and justifying missile attacks. And if we're talking about Romania, it is manipulating of the context and discredited Romania as one of the possible energy leaders of energy suppliers when it is needed, like in the situation where is the Republic of Moldova is, because Republic of Moldova is also affected by what's going on in Ukraine because of joint energy systems since Soviet time, and it is also used by wire propaganda on various levels. I will show you just several narratives, several titles which create its narratives, and but there are plenty of articles which are disseminated of pure known informational sources, anonymous Telegram channels, and it was very interesting to see that also YouTube platform is all started to be involved in this wire communication, to become more attractive for different target audiences. Narratives which disseminated in Ukraine mostly are follows. Kyiv regime sells electricity to Moldova. People in Ukraine are increasingly expressing opinions about selling precious electricity to Moldova, Romania, actually, and the West, and Kyiv sells generators provided by West to help Ukrainian people. So as you see, this is classical fake news instruments. I try to disseminate these terms because, like, fake we are consider like instrument in a big approach of propaganda. And actually in Ukraine, this instrument is used mostly just lying about facts and misinterpreting the situation about decision-making process and about the help supply from West to Ukrainian people in this regard. When we talk about Republic of Moldova, it is a bit broader context. It's not only about fake news, but also it is about so-called expert opinions and so-called investigative fake. It's even hard to determine. They pretend to be investigating messages, like to pretending that Russian attacks, for example, help Moldova to discover that Kyiv regime, so-called corrupted and provided energy schemes, obviously from Transnistria, probably they might say, and the Moldovan people have to be grateful for this because they right now, after a missile attack on Ukraine, are able to know about it. Also, Ukraine is portrayed as unreliable exporter of electricity to Moldova because it was one out of two of them. Moldova, probably someone might not know about this from Balkans, had supplies from occupied Transnistria from a Russian ruled company, and the second source of electricity was Ukraine. And obviously after missile attacks, this providing was stopped, and right now wire communication propaganda of Russian state media tries to portray Ukraine as unreliable trade partner in this context. Yeah, and actually Moldova being a small country, having just two neighbors country, Ukraine and Romania has getting more and more role in resolving this crisis, because it's the single country who can approach this situation, helping Moldovan people who are also affected by blackouts as well. And Romania in this regard are highly discredited from the perspective of Russian propaganda by misinterpreting context. So it's not like direct narratives toward against Romania, but direct narratives are always supported anti-Romanian messages, anti-Romanian context, like when they try to portray Ukraine as unreliable trade partners, they mostly always add something negative about Romania. The same is happening in Ukrainian context. When they try to portray that Ukrainian authority sells electricity abroad, they add mostly always something negative about Romania also. So like they sell electricity in Moldova, Western country, especially in Romania. It seems like that. And actually it was an unexpected spot that we have discovered, because Romania usually suffered from Russian propaganda in the context of European level. It's like rhetoric mostly, and of course it's trying to attempt to undermine support of Ukraine, support of to provide Russian narrative, traditional Russian narratives, and in this on this level, Romania also is affected on the regional non-European level, being together with Moldova and Ukraine in this energy crisis. So, and I put it like in a simple structure. We believe that it has two levels of scopes: strategical communication to justify military aggression against Ukraine, and to disorient regional cooperation in the region, mostly in the context of cooperation non-European state, and Romania being the regional leader from some point also suffered from these outcomes as well. And outcomes that might come in the result, it's forming negative public opinion, obviously, undermine ability to confront the crisis, demoralization of responsible authorities. I put here just Kyiv, but also the matter of Republic of Moldova as well, because it is supported by hybrid action on a high level. Obviously, it is radicalizing local disposition and inter-region disposition, especially when we see messages about unreliable trade partners or something like that, when propaganda tries to frame a negative opinion about other countries. Yes, and framing of the Russian companies as only one possible source of energy supplies. This was all from my side in this context. Maybe you have some questions. Maybe you would like to discuss some other contexts, because there are a lot, and we are monitoring situation every day. It is non-stop informational flow from Russian state media, Russian state-controlled media. So if you would like to get to know some more insights about how propaganda operates, I would be happy to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mariana. So disinformation is another very broad field, but very important one, and this is a good example on the how relations to disinformation is moving between Ukraine, Moldova, and Romania. So how Russian targets with disinformation these three countries regarding blackouts and electricity. So Ambassador Cherlishvili, would you like to contribute with your opinion, please?
Yeah, thank you very much. No, I would like to express gratitude to Mariana for very interesting presentation. My question is, Mariana, you have described excellently, I mean, all these Russian narratives. How are you confronting and how you are fighting with these fakes coming from Russia, number one, and number two, what we can do, international networking, can we use international networks in order to confront this fake propaganda coming from Russia, and namely what our gathering can do to help our Ukrainian friends to confront Russian fake propaganda. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the complex question. Actually, I will start from what we are doing with this every day. Our primary activity is fact-checking. It is the worst way to fight with propaganda, but there is no better way, like with democracy. What we can do, I believe that we need to study deeply what's going on with public opinion. Because there are a lot of, let's say, frozen social conflicts which could be intensified during some unexpected, during some political uncertainty. So it is a core mechanism of propaganda, how it works when people are put in the context of uncertainty. They could be manipulated in any direction. And the third, it should be very extremely tough monitoring what's going on in Russian state media, including anonymous Telegram, which we have proved that related with Russian state media, because they are working, they synchronized, they worked from the very beginning, and what's going on one channel, for example, could be added and could be put farther in the farther direction on the other channel. It is extremely interconnected, and we need to see full landscape, full image, what's going on, and it's impossible to do by the attempts of one organization, even very experienced. So it's like three components: daily fact check of ongoing messages, deep studies of social conflicts, for predicting and avoiding these narratives in future. And the third, very deep monitoring on the level of, I don't know, maybe intelligence services, political entities, institutions, to provide some quality analytics data for journalists.
Thank you very much, Mariana. And also, I would like today to add something, because we are currently within the Butsuni are also discussing this area, and we really think, because Russian propaganda is really very active also in Western Balkans, with different, like within different areas, starting from the disinformation regarding the situation and battlefield in Ukraine and Ukrainian government and so on, to some historical and cultural area of disinformation and so on. So this is something really what is for sure European level, regional level related, and of course it's for sure must be addressed also not only on national levels but on regional levels. And we believe that civil society should do much more. Currently, disinformation somehow is in hands of organizations which are working mostly on fact-checking. And actually, to ensure that level of awareness among population is higher, more civil society actors, more governmental organizations should be involved in this area. So we are currently working on some idea of creation of, let's say, hybrid threats observatory, regional one, where experts from different fields, from different countries in Western Balkans, Ukraine, Moldova, will be working together on monitoring of not only disinformation, but other hybrid threats which Russia use against the region and against the democracy in this region, and then jointly develop a way how to address them. So this is something what really is in our focus, and I invite everyone who is interested in this area to join, because we are on the stage of planning. So welcome, and let's work together on this. Any other questions?
Yeah, I just want to add, probably it might be interesting for you. Once we discussed, I have very great contacts and connections with Romanian journalists, and once we discussed how our countries could to develop bilateral relations, and we discussed which topics perceived negatively in both countries and which topics are perceived positively from the perspective of both audiences. And one of the positive topics is from Romanian side, for the by the opinions on my colleagues, was actually military cooperation, because Romania was responsible of kind of cyber security trust. I'm not pretty good in these details, but if we are talking about how to promote positive attitudes between societies, between audiences, it should be discussed primarily this from the factual perspective. Actually, I'm not talking about kind of even kind of strategical communication, what is also reliable instruments. But when we promote kind of positive perceived topics to support country image, it also can be good instrument to protect informational space from any harmful effects. Like when people staying without any factual knowledge about each other, when they stay in the situation of unconscious situation regarding each other, it's very easy to say them anything and to form any opinion and to direct them in any direction.
Yes, thank you very much. Very, very important also comment. Thanks. Any other questions, comments?
If I may make a comment in order for all of you to understand. Well, my comment is not related to what Mariana presented, but is rather complementary. So I would say that for Russian Federation, it's always useful to open a second front of disinformation in the Republic of Moldova, adding to the real front in Ukraine. Why it's so important to open such a front? Because I think the Republic of Moldova, it's right now, how to see, the one experiment. So if one thing happened to be successful from the perspective of propaganda in the Republic of Moldova, it could be considered by Kremlin also ready for Ukraine. So I think that this is the equation right now. The Russian Federation
Professor Radu, with some connection problem, I think.
energy grid in Ukraine that affect the Republic of Moldova were also deliberately done. And I mean, Russian forces knew from the very beginning that by affecting the energy infrastructure in Ukraine, it will have a collateral damage also in the Republic of Moldova. It's not by coincidence, or it's not a mistake. So every step Republic of Moldova is making in the process of finding a solution to energy problems in regard and strengthening the cooperation with Romania, it's considered as yesterday, Mrs. Zaharova was very much interested of what Mrs. Maya Sandu did in Romania, and she offered apocalyptic perspective. And well, in my opinion, they are just testing some solutions to see how the audience is reacting to see the event. I mean, I really don't know. I follow Mariana's presentation. She offered good arguments, but really in this moment, I cannot assess in which direction they want to go. I mean, they started, for example, to attack the problem of gas deposits of Republic of Moldova and Ukraine. And Moldova replied that it's not Russian business to see where there are these deposits. I spoke with some Moldovan policymakers and asked a very direct question. Do they plan an attack on these deposits? And they firmly said no. But I don't know. I mean, even them, they don't know what to expect. But it's for this reason, I think it's very important to build a right communication of what is going on, because I don't think that many people knows in Ukraine the terrible situation right now in the Republic of Moldova, in the sense that the Republic of Moldova is really depending more than 0.5% on Romanian imports. That Republic of Moldova is trying to build a kind of new relationship with Transnistria, but not to encourage the separatists in Tiraspol because they have a connection in energy. So I really don't know if in Ukraine these things are really known. So
I think that there is some problems with connection. Unfortunately, Professor Karp is not here. Okay, so maybe he will join us later on and finish his speech. Okay, let's continue then. So we tried with all presentations cover the main areas of our position paper and our idea with which we want to approach European Union. Another area which we didn't include, but it's quite, I think, clear, and maybe we can discuss here, is cultural, educational, and youth cooperation. We are happy already to have in our network youth organizations from different countries, and we really have and had their inputs in this paper. So now I generally suggest for you to open the paper, and if you have any other idea, to communicate them. But also I suggest for you, like we will still leave it open for revision until Monday. So if you still have any comments or ideas, you can still put them in written form directly to the Google document, and we will appreciate them. If you have any other of your colleagues whom can contribute, you can also share with them. So we will leave the document open. I really would like to thank for all speakers and for all of participants for your contribution, your ideas, your really valuable comments. I think that we really, during this 2 hours conversation, received already great inputs, which we will include to the document. After that, from when we will receive final comments, so we will wait until Monday, we'll put them to the document. And after that, we will be working on dissemination to European Commission, to European politicians, political parties, and Parliament. So as Professor Karp recommended, we'll make sure that our idea will be delivered not only to those who already have thousands different open letters and position papers in their inbox, but also to those who have decision making in their hands, but maybe not so overload with different proposals. So we will be really strategically think how to deliver it to appropriate people. And of course, we will be grateful for you if you will also help us to approach decision makers in the European Union through different channels which you have. Also, I would like to use the opportunity and invite you to join the Boots in the Network. So we are quite new network. We were established in October this year, and we joined together organizations and individuals from Western Balkans, Ukraine, but also we invite Moldova, Romania, Georgia as associated partners. So please, if you are interested in collaboration, please join us. We will send you like to your email the way how to join the network, because this is one of our event and we have a lot of event. Really, Butsuni now is focused on bringing it together Ukrainian and Western Balkans partners. Unfortunately, due to this morning missile attack, you cannot see a lot of Ukrainian participants because there is big problem with electricity this morning. So we did have registrations, but unfortunately they didn't join because of these electricity problems. So if you are interested in opening discussion on different topics with Ukraine, Western Balkan partners, I really advise you to join us. Any other comments for the end? Okay, so I will tell you next steps one more time to summarize. So till Monday, please just like read the documents one more time, insert your suggestions if you have such. Also, you can share still with other partners who might contribute to this document. After that, we will put all your comments and finalize the document, share this final version with you, and then we will be working together on dissemination, delivering this position paper to decision maker in the European Union, to European Commission, to the Parliament, to the politicians. And after that, we will be working on advocacy, advocating in Brussels for accepting our proposal, like this general idea, but also we hope in a further period to work specifically on all sectors. So as we told, we have security sector, we have disinformation sector, and all these broad topics require particular ideas and strategies. So I also invite you to join these processes, and thank you very much. I wish you a good weekend and hope to continue cooperate with you.